The time for action has arrived.
Everybody knows by now that Steve Bannon, the fat walrus, who's decided to choose the Donald Trump hill to die on, is now in custody. And already Republicans are threatening retaliation or payback, in their words, for it. Now, all this is stemming from a Washington Post article. I'm going to read portions of it to you. Now, Republicans are rallying around former White House advisor Bannon after his indictment on charges of contempt of Congress on Friday, warning Democrats' efforts to force Bannon to comply with what they say is an unfair subpoena and paves the way for them to do the same if they take the House back in 2022. So basically, they want to cry because we're investigating a crime that happened on January 6th, and they're threatening retaliation to do the same in 2022 if they get to take back the House. And that's a big if at this point. Because let's not forget the fact that we have years of evidence of you trying to cover up for Donald Trump and everything else, but more on that in a few moments. Back to the article. Bannon, like former President Trump, I'm sorry, I shouldn't even use that phrase, former president, like ex-douche Donald Trump, has refused to comply with an order from the House Committee investigating January 6th to turn over records and testify about his actions leading up to the attack. When the pro-mob storm, you know what happened on January 6th. I won't get into details. More on that in a few minutes. Bannon himself is expected to turn himself into law enforcement Monday ahead of court appearance that afternoon, which he already has. Democrats and a handful of anti-Trump Republicans argued that indictment was necessary to enforce subpoenas issued by the January 6th committee to Trump associates who are resisting cooperation and to witness summoned by other congressional panels. Let's get something straight off the deep end right now. If you're called to testify, you got no choice but to show up, ever. It's either that or you spend the night in jail or days in jail. You don't have a choice but to show up if you're called to testify in Congress, in the Senate, and in court itself. You got no choice. And this is the end result on it. But here's the point we're trying to get here about the GOP and the Republicans acting like babies. Many GOP leaders, however, are seizing on Bannon's indictment to contend that Democrats are weaponizing, their words, weaponizing the Justice Department, warning Democrats that they will go after Biden's aides for unspecific reasons if they take back the House majority in next year's midterms, as most political analysts expect. So basically, they hurt you, and now you're trying to hurt them back. Only you're just going to make stuff up to go after them. Do I need to remind you about what happened on January 6th, what Donald Trump pushed to happen, what people like Steve Bannon and the rest of GOP senators and congressmen allowed to happen? I'm going to remind you, this is what happened.
If they don't fix this shit, we're gonna fucking this country. Day? Millions of Americans are out
to protect the Constitution of the United States against enemies, foreign and domestic.
We're outnumbered. There's a fucking million of us out there, and we are listening to Trump, your boss. It's sad. It's sad. Let the people in. Defend your Constitution! Defend your liberty!
Constitution! Defend...
1776!
You're afraid of that, Chief? Well, guess what? America showed up!
Where's the rest of everybody? There's not enough of us. They're going to bring vets in or something.
Is this the city?
Where the fuck are they? Where are they?
While we're here, we might as well set up a government.
Hey, let's take a seat, people! Let's take a seat!
Hey, Nancy Pelosi.
Let's vote on some shit!
Where the fuck is Nancy?
It's only a matter of time. Justice is coming.
Break all the windows! Fucking pussy!
Making a list, put all those names down, and we start hunting them down one by one.
Traitors get guillotined!
We are at war. Right on. From this day forward, kill one of us. And no matter what, even if it kills you, remain a free man. Die on your feet. Never live on your knees. Fuck the AP and everything else, you motherfuckers. Mobilize in your own cities, your own counties, storm your own Capitol buildings, and take down every one of these corrupt motherfuckers.
Had enough? But here's where it gets worse. These are direct quotes from two Republicans who are rallying against this. This is Representative Elise Stefanik, Republican, New York. For years, this is her talking, for years, Democrats basically accused President Trump of weaponizing the DOJ, which he has, but more on that in a few moments. In reality, it is the left that has been weaponizing the DOJ the entire time, from the false Russia hoax to the Soviet persecution of political opponents. Now, this is a tweet from her. Do I need to remind you that Donald Trump tried to use the DOJ to persecute reporters that were saying bad things about him, that didn't do what he wanted him to do? Do I need to remind you of that? Apparently I do. I just did. But then again, here's Representative Jim, and that's GYM for obvious reasons, Jim Jordan, Republican of Ohio. He's suggesting, this is coming from an article, suggested that Republicans would seek payback if the GOP regained control of the House, signaling that a change in doctrine of executive privilege, Democrats will make it easier for Republicans to force Biden's top advisors to testify before a future GOP Congress. Now, this is what he says on his Twitter page. Joe Biden has eviscerated executive privilege. You do know that executive privilege applies only to presidents who are currently serving as president, not former presidents. I know you're stupid, and I know you're an enabler of child molestation, but you can't be that stupid, Jordan. Obviously you are. Anyway, going on to his tweet, there are a lot of Republicans eager to hear testimony from Ron Klein and Jake Sullivan when we take back the House. Now, to let you know, Sullivan is National Security Advisor for Biden, and Klein is the White House Chief of Staff. What exactly do you expect them to testify about, Jordan? What exactly? So you want to hear from them, but you don't want to hear from Steve Bannon, from Mark Meadows, Donald Trump's Chief of Staff. You want to hear from everyone else, but you don't want to hear from the Donald Trump people. Those are hands off. Those people are hands off. We can't talk about them. You're enabling and abetting a crime, Jordan. Now, continuing from the article, the January 6th committee may also refer Donald Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, to the Justice Department for possible criminal prosecution in the coming days. Meadows, like Bannon, has been also subpoenaed by the committee and did not appear Friday for a scheduled deposition. I hope to God they do. I hope they do charge criminal charges against Meadows. This bullshit game of the Donald Trump base is going to stop. It has to stop. Every day that no one is held responsible for January 6th, and I'm not just talking about the idiots who marched in there. Those are the pawns. Donald Trump used them as pawns. I'm talking about people like Jim Jordan, like Mark Meadows, like Steve Bannon, like people on Fox News, like people on ONN, like people on Newsmax. I want the people who pushed this attack in prison. Because that is what's going to save our republic, to save our democracy. But continuing from the article, Democrats argue that the doctrine of executive privilege, intended to shield confidential communication between the president and his advisors, was never meant to apply to the kind of information the committee is now seeking. Of course it doesn't apply, because Donald Trump is not the president of the United States right now. Donald Trump is a former president. His executive privilege ended on January 20th, 2021 at noon on that day, the minute that Joe Biden and the minute that Kamala Harris became the president and vice president of the United States. Now, the panel is exploring conversations between Bannon and Trump that occurred when Bannon had no government position, which means that he has to testify. He wasn't in a position anywhere in the United States government. So that argument of theirs falls to shreds. And the committee members say they're interested in interactions related to any incendiary attack on the United States Capitol, not talks involving legitimate government business. So again, that argument falls to shreds. Bannon, take my advice, boy. You better talk, and you better answer every question truthfully. Because quite honestly, if you don't talk, you're going to spend the rest of your fat-ass life in a prison cell, avoiding gang rape in the shower. And this little martyr complex you Donald Trump supporters want to adopt is not going to work. You're not martyrs and you're not victims. You're the victimizers. Plain and simple. And I'm going to reiterate my challenge I did a few videos back. If Donald Trump is 100% innocent of all of this, why is Donald Trump suppressing evidence or trying to suppress evidence? He's temporarily succeeded so far. Why is he suppressing evidence that could prove his guilt? Or more to the point, prove his innocence? Why is he doing it? Now, I've put that challenge out a few videos ago and no one has responded to me, which means either they're not interested or they're so far to the right that they don't want to talk about it, or they know that'll break them. Plain and simple. Donald Trump is never going to be president again. And if he does become president again, this country is going to die. Because sooner or later, someone else is going to try another January 6th style attack. And more than the body count is going to be a hell of a lot more than 5. And it's going to take a hell of a lot more people than just a few here or there type things on both sides. Because if Donald Trump is reelected, I'm not saying this as a threat. I'm saying this as a fact. There are hardcore leftists out there who would try something like that. Now, I'm going to do everything in my power to stop them from that because we're supposed to be better than that. Remember, we're better than that. Donald Trump isn't. Donald Trump supporters are not. They're still trying to justify what happened as justifiable. Or they're saying it was completely faked or a plot by the deep state to make Trump look bad. excuse me, Donald Trump doesn't need our help to make him look bad. Donald Trump makes him look bad himself look bad on a daily basis with no help from us. So the fact is this. Why is Donald Trump hiding crucial evidence that could prove his innocence? Is it because he's guilty? I'm still waiting for an answer for that. And I'm still waiting for someone to come on YouTube, come on Facebook to answer that question. And no one will. So, it's obvious. You either believe he's guilty and you're afraid to say it, or you believe he's innocent and you're afraid to say it, or you're too stupid or too cowardly to say it. But Steve Bannon is going to talk. Guys like him always talk. It's just a matter of time. And this threat of retaliation, bring it. Because we got a hell of a lot more on all of you Republicans, especially you, Jim Jordan, than you think you got on us. CTP, know the truth. God bless. Peace to the left, justice to the right.